Every species on this planet has spent millions of years being shaped by it. Fish grew gills because water demanded it. Birds hollowed out their bones because the sky demanded it. Polar bears grew a coat thick enough to shrug off Arctic winters because the ice demanded it. And then there's us. We burn if we stand in our own sunlight too long. Our spines fail on a schedule you could set a clock to. We give birth through a process dangerous enough that it kills us more often than it kills almost any other mammal on Earth. And we're the only species that ever looked around at the world we supposedly evolved in and thought, something about this doesn't fit. So here's the question worth taking seriously for a few minutes. What if the reason we don't fit isn't in our heads at all? Start with the sun. Lizards will sit in direct light for hours without a problem. Dogs, horses, elephants, they live their whole lives under the same star we do. And their fur, their scales, their pigment, all of it is tuned for it. Ours isn't. We had to invent a paste, rub it onto our skin, just to go outside without damaging ourselves. Sit with that for a second. We manufacture a chemical shield because our own sun is actively working against us. Now look at your back. Roughly 4 out of every 5 humans will deal with chronic back pain at some point in their life. When that many members of a species share the exact same structural failure, you stop blaming individual people and start looking at the design itself. Our spine is essentially a horizontal bridge that evolution tried to stand on its end. The discs between each vertebra compress under gravity in a way they were never built to handle. Compare that to a kangaroo or an ostrich. Both upright, both bipedal, and neither one has this problem, because their skeletons were built for standing from the ground up. Ours was retrofitted, and retrofitted badly. Then there's birth. Human childbirth is, by a wide margin, the most dangerous delivery process of any mammal alive. Our babies are born with heads so large they barely clear the birth canal, and for almost all of human history, giving birth was one of the leading causes of death for women. No other species on Earth routinely dies trying to produce healthy offspring. That particular tragedy belongs to us alone. A horse delivers a foal in about half an hour, and that foal is standing and walking within the hour. A human baby can't even support its own head for months. We arrive helpless, dependent, and stay that way longer than any other creature that has ever lived. Add allergies to the pile. Your immune system exists to protect you, but in humans, it regularly turns on things that were never a threat in the first place. Pollen, peanuts, dust, a cat walking past. Somewhere around 3 in 10 people on the planet carry some form of allergy. That's a defense system attacking the very air being breathed and the food being eaten. Either evolution made an unusually sloppy mistake here, or the body running this software was calibrated for a different environment entirely. But the strangest part isn't physical at all. It's what's happening in our heads. No other animal on this planet knows it's going to die. A dog doesn't lie awake at night wondering what comes after. A dolphin doesn't have an existential crisis. An elephant doesn't build a religion to make peace with its own mortality. We do. All of us, everywhere, throughout history. We're the only species walking around with full, permanent awareness that one day, we simply stop. And instead of just living with that fact quietly, we've spent our entire existence trying to answer it. We build temples, we write philosophy, we construct entire civilizations, partly organized around the question of what happens when the lights go out. Why would evolution hand us that? What survival advantage does existential dread actually provide? For most of human history, this particular awareness has pushed people toward despair, toward madness, toward war. It reads less like an evolved trait and more like a symptom, something conscious enough to sense that things are wrong, but never quite able to name what the problem is. And then there's the piece that's hardest to wave away. Every species on Earth exists inside some kind of balance with the rest of its ecosystem. Predators keep prey populations in check. Prey keeps plant growth in check. Decomposers feed nutrients back into the ground. It's a closed loop. Everyone plays a part. Except us. We clear forests at scale. We poison rivers. We've pumped enough gas into the atmosphere to shift the planet's temperature. We've driven thousands of species into extinction and show no real sign of slowing down. We're not participating in Earth's ecosystem. We're dismantling it. And if you think about that plainly, it's exactly the behavior you'd expect from something dropped onto a planet it wasn't actually built for. Something that doesn't know the rules, because the rules were never written with it in mind. So if we really don't fit, where did we come from? In 1973, Francis Crick, the same Crick who won a Nobel Prize for helping decode the structure of DNA, one of the most consequential scientists of the 20th century, published a paper with chemist Leslie Orgel proposing something genuinely strange. He called it directed panspermia, the idea that life on Earth may not have originated here at all, but was deliberately planted by an intelligent civilization from somewhere else. The man who cracked the code of life itself looked at the story of how that life began and concluded the timeline didn't add up cleanly. And the timeline is odd. Life appears in the fossil record roughly 3.8 billion years ago, on a planet that's only about 4.5 billion years old. That means complex organic chemistry showed up within a few hundred million years of Earth's formation, while the planet was still being pounded by asteroids, still cooling out of a molten, toxic atmosphere mess. In geological terms, that's close to overnight. Biologists have quietly found that speed's suspicious for decades. Then there's the Murchison meteorite, a rock that fell over southeastern Australia in 1969. When researchers cracked it open, they found dozens of distinct amino acids inside, several of them identical to the amino acids that build every living thing on this planet. Organic chemistry, riding through the vacuum of space on a piece of rock. We also know, separately, that life can survive that trip. Tardigrades, tiny eight-legged creatures barely visible without a microscope, have been exposed directly to the vacuum of space, to cosmic radiation, to temperatures near absolute zero, and lived through it. In 2019, an Israeli lunar lander carrying a payload of tardigrades crashed on the moon's surface, and some researchers think a portion of them may still be intact up there, dormant, waiting. Life, it turns out, doesn't need to stay on one planet. It can hitch a ride. In 2013, ecologist Ellis Silver published a book pulling all of this physical evidence together: the sunburn, the bad backs, the allergies, the dangerous births, even the fact that our internal circadian clock runs slightly longer than Earth's actual 24-hour day, and argued these weren't just evolutionary quirks. He argued they were signals, signs that we originated somewhere else. Here's where it gets complicated, though, because mainstream biology actually has a solid answer for nearly all of it. It's called evolutionary mismatch, and honestly, it might be a more interesting story than the alien one. Take the back pain. We've only been walking upright for around 6 million years. That sounds like a long time, but evolution runs on a much slower clock than that. 6 million years isn't nearly enough for a skeleton built for four-legged movement to be fully redesigned for two. We're walking around in an early prototype that never got its final revision. The sunburn has an explanation too. We lost most of our body hair, and the leading theory is thermoregulation. When our ancestors moved out of forests and onto open savanna, they needed a way to stay cool while running for hours under direct sun. Sweat evaporates far more efficiently off bare skin than through a coat of fur. We essentially traded the fur for stamina and the ability to physically outlast almost every other animal alive. The sunburn is just the leftover cost of that trade. Childbirth follows the same logic. Our brains grew larger faster than our pelvis could widen to accommodate them. Researchers call it the obstetric dilemma. Evolution was trying to make us smarter and keep us upright on two legs at the same time, and the birth canal ended up caught in the middle of that tug of war. It's dangerous, but it's not mysterious. Even the environmental destruction has a rational, if unflattering, explanation. We evolved in small bands on a savanna, where resources felt effectively unlimited, relative to how few of us there were. Our brains are wired for short-term survival within a small group, not for managing the long-term health of an entire planet. We're not an invasive species from somewhere else. We're a species that became disproportionately powerful, disproportionately fast, for the instincts it was still running on. So, does that settle it? Almost. There's one thing evolutionary biology still hasn't fully explained: the speed. No species in 4 billion years of life on Earth has ever done what we did. Dolphins have existed for roughly 50 million years, intelligent, socially complex, communicative, and in all that time they have never built a single tool. Chimpanzees figured out how to use sticks around 4 million years ago, and haven't meaningfully upgraded the technology since. And then there's us. Sharpened stones to nuclear weapons in about 2 million years, fire to a space station orbiting the planet, cave paintings to artificial intelligence, striking flint together to landing robots on Mars. 200 years ago, we had no railroads. 125 years ago, no airplanes. 75 years ago, we hadn't left the atmosphere. 35 years ago, there was no internet. Nothing else in the entire history of life on this planet has accelerated anywhere close to that rate, and scientists genuinely don't agree on why. some point to language. Some point to cooking, which unlocked more calories and let our brains grow larger. Some point to a mutation in a gene called FOXP2 that may have enabled complex speech. Others credit our unusual ability to teach, to stack knowledge across generations, so each one starts further ahead than the last. All of it probably played some role. None of it, on its own, fully explains the raw speed of the acceleration. Every other intelligent species on this planet developed gradually, over tens of millions of years. We went from prey animal to running the entire planet in what amounts to a geological blink. Crick couldn't fully explain that. Silver couldn't fully explain that. Modern evolutionary biology can explain pieces of it, but not the whole thing, not yet. The most honest answer science has right now is simply, we don't fully know. We have pieces. We don't have the complete picture, and that gap is exactly what keeps the question alive. To be clear, it's probably not true that we're literally alien. The evolutionary evidence for our origin here is strong, and mismatch theory accounts for most of what feels physically wrong about us. We're almost certainly a product of this planet, shaped by the same forces that shaped everything else living on it. But almost certainly isn't the same thing as definitely. And when serious scientists, including one of the people who helped found modern genetics, look at the evidence and say something here doesn't quite add up, that isn't conspiracy thinking. That's just science doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Asking the uncomfortable question, and being honest when the answer doesn't come out clean. It's the same restlessness that made us look up at the stars in the first place. The same itch that made us build rockets and telescopes and send small robots to other worlds just to see what's out there. Maybe that restlessness isn't a flaw in the design. Maybe it's a clue. Because if we are from here, then we're the strangest thing this planet has ever produced. A species that burns in its own sunlight, breaks under its own gravity, and still can't stop staring at the sky, wondering where it actually came from. And if we're not from here, then we've spent roughly 200,000 years trying to find our way back, and we don't even know it.